In the world of the ultra-wealthy, power is everything. Image is carefully crafted. Secrets are buried deep, and when something or someone disrupts the illusion, the consequences can be catastrophic. Desmond Holloway was a name everyone in New Orleans recognized. A billionaire real estate mogul, a self-made tycoon who built his empire from the ground up. Ruthless in business, charming in public. The kind of man whose handshake could close a million-dollar deal, whose presence alone could make or break fortunes. His wife, Camille Holloway, was just as captivating. A former defense attorney turned philanthropist, known for her elegance and intelligence. She moved in elite circles, hosted charity galas, and advocated for women's rights. To the world, she was the perfect complement to Desmond, his equal in every way. Then, on September 15th, Desmond made a stunning announcement. In a carefully staged press conference, surrounded by cameras and reporters, he revealed that after more than a decade of marriage, he and Camille were getting a divorce. No messy court battles, no public drama, just a mutual decision to go their separate ways. A clean break. Or at least, that's what he wanted everyone to believe. 3 days later, Camille Holloway walked out of an upscale charity gala, dressed in an emerald green gown, smiling, waving to cameras. That was the last time anyone saw her. Her car was found abandoned on a deserted highway. The engine was still running. Her purse was in the front seat. Her phone was wiped clean. No signs of struggle, no clear evidence of where she went or who took her. A high-profile divorce had turned into something else entirely. What happened to Camille Holloway? Did she vanish willingly, escaping from something she feared? Or did someone ensure she would never be found? As investigators peeled back the layers of Camille's life, they discovered secrets she had been keeping. Secrets about Desmond, about their marriage, about a financial scheme that could ruin him, and about a threat that might have followed her into the night. This isn't just the story of a missing woman. This is the story of power, deception, and the terrifying price of knowing too much. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear will change everything you thought you knew about this case. New Orleans, a city of contradictions, where history whispers from the cobblestone streets and ambition climbs sky-high from the gleaming towers above, where the weight of old money presses against the rise of new fortunes. It's a place of indulgence and reinvention, where power isn't just measured in wealth, but in influence, in reputation, in the secrets people are willing to keep or willing to expose. And for Desmond and Camille Holloway, this city was their kingdom. Desmond Holloway wasn't just a businessman. He was a businessman, a real estate tycoon who built his empire from nothing, turning abandoned properties into luxury developments, flipping entire neighborhoods into playgrounds for the rich. He had a presence that filled the room before he even spoke. People listened when he talked. They nodded when he made deals. And when he walked into a high-rise, everyone knew he was the one who owned it. He was the... But it wasn't just his money that made Desmond untouchable, it was his image. The sharp suits, the carefully curated smile, the way he could charm a senator over dinner and intimidate a competitor in the same breath. He played the long game. He always won. And then there was Camille Holloway. Smart, sophisticated, stunning. A former defense attorney who had spent years fighting cases that no one else would touch, she had a legal mind that could dismantle an argument before the other side even realized they had lost. When she left the courtroom, she didn't leave the fight. She turned her attention to philanthropy, championing causes that mattered. Women's rights, prison reform, education for underprivileged kids. While Desmond built buildings, Camille built legacy. Together, they were untouchable. The power couple of New Orleans. The ones who had it all. But power like that, it comes at a cost. To the outside world, Desmond and Camille were perfect. The kind of couple people envied. The kind of marriage others wished they had. They hosted elaborate parties at their mansion in the Garden District, where magnolia trees lined the streets and iron-gated balconies loomed over the sidewalks. Their guests were politicians, CEOs, and socialites. The people who made the rules. But behind the grand chandeliers, the imported wines, the carefully staged photos in glossy magazines, There was a marriage unraveling. The arguments started behind closed doors. Small at first, then louder, more frequent. The charity galas became strained, the perfect smiles forced. And in the circles that thrived on whispers, the rumors started. Some said Camille had grown tired of Desmond's business dealings. Others claimed she had uncovered something that could destroy him. And then some believed Camille had her secrets. That maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the only one trying to leave. Then, one night, Desmond made an announcement. In front of cameras, in front of reporters, he declared the end of their marriage. He said it was mutual, that it was time to go their separate ways, that they had simply grown apart. 3 days later, Camille Holloway was gone. She didn't pack a suitcase. She didn't make a call. She didn't leave a note. One moment she was there, flashing her signature smile at a charity gala, and then she wasn't. An empty car, a missing woman, a marriage that was already over. On the surface, it looked like Camille had simply walked away. But in a city where power is everything, some people don't get to leave so easily. And as investigators would soon discover, Camille Holloway's disappearance was anything but simple. September 15th. Cameras flashed, microphones turned on, and reporters leaned in, waiting for a statement that no one saw coming. Desmond Holloway, standing tall, impeccably dressed, his voice calm and unwavering. After much thought, Camille and I have decided to part ways. A simple sentence, carefully crafted. No accusations, no drama. Just an official statement that made its way to every news outlet before the ink on the press release was even dry. The world heard it. Friends heard it. Camille heard it. And within minutes, her phone exploded with messages, calls from colleagues, reporters, family members, people wanting to know the truth. Was it really over? Was she really walking away from the man she had built a life with? But one message stood out, one that would become chilling in hindsight. A single text from an unknown number that read, "Leave now. You're not safe." Camille didn't respond. Instead, she called Desmond. No answer. She texted him. No response. She called again, straight to voicemail. And then, silence. Whatever conversation they should have had in private was now public, and Camille was left in the dark. 3 days later, she appeared at the Beaumont Foundation Charity Gala, the annual event she'd never missed. She walked in alone, no husband, no security detail, just Camille, looking flawless as always, moving through the crowd with the kind of grace that made it seem like nothing was wrong. But something was, because according to witnesses, she was distracted, checking her phone, glancing over her shoulder. A tense smile, polite nods, but never staying too long in one place. And then, just after 11 p.m., she slipped out the back exit, alone. Surveillance cameras caught her heading toward the parking garage. She wasn't rushing, but she wasn't lingering either. Her car was parked on the lower level, just past a row of empty spaces. But before she could reach it, she stopped, just for a second, just long enough to turn her head, like she'd heard something, like she wasn't alone. And then she was gone. The next morning, a driver passing through Highway 29 noticed something unusual, a black Mercedes parked on the shoulder, facing east. He slowed down, expecting to see someone inside, maybe a stranded driver in need of help. But the car was empty, keys still in the ignition, the driver's side door unlocked, purse in the passenger seat untouched, phone sitting in the cup holder, factory reset, nothing inside it. No texts, no contacts, no history, just a blank screen with no past. Camille Holloway was nowhere to be found. The first officer on the scene checked the area. No broken glass, no signs of struggle, no footprints leading into the woods. The car wasn't out of gas, wasn't broken down. It was just there, like someone had parked it, stepped out, and vanished. Detectives arrived within the hour, searching the perimeter, knocking on doors, checking local traffic cameras. But the footage was useless. No sign of Camille's car between the gala and where it was found. It was like the drive itself had been erased. And then came the questions. Where was she headed? Who was she meeting? And why did she leave alone? Investigators retraced her final hours, the gala, the people she spoke to, the messages she sent. They accessed security footage, watching her movements frame by frame. They saw her smile, shake hands, whisper something to a guest before turning away. They saw her step outside, walk toward her car, hesitate for a moment. But there was one thing they didn't see: what happened next. Because just beyond the last camera's reach, just past the edge of the frame, Camille Holloway disappeared from the world. And then came the voice message. At 2:47 a.m., Camille's mother, Eleanor Price, woke up to a missed call from Camille's number. No voicemail, just a call that lasted 5 seconds before cutting off. At 2:49 a.m., another call came through. This time a message was left, a recording that lasted only 3 seconds. 3 seconds of heavy breathing, 3 seconds of what sounded like muffled movement, 3 seconds of something that sent a chill through investigators when they heard it. A single whispered word. Wait. That was it. No follow-up, no explanation, just that one word before the line went dead. The search for Camille began immediately. The car was towed, dusted for fingerprints, checked for any trace of evidence. They examined the purse, the phone, the receipts in the glove compartment, but nothing pointed to where she had gone or why she had left in the first place. And the deeper investigators dug, the more questions they uncovered. Because Camille Holloway hadn't just vanished. She had left behind a trail of secrets. Secrets that some people would do anything to keep buried. By the time the sun rose over New Orleans, Camille Holloway had been missing for nearly 8 hours. 8 hours without a single call, text, or sign of life. And for those who knew her best, that silence was deafening. Friends and family wasted no time. Calls to Camille's phone went straight to voicemail. Her mother, Eleanor Price, left 3 messages within the first hour, her voice trembling with worry. Her sister, Leona Hayes, wasn't waiting around for the police. She drove straight to Camille's house, pounding on the door, calling out her name. No answer. Nothing. And that's when reality started to sink in. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The police were notified before noon. At first, it was treated as a missing persons case. Routine questions. When was the last time anyone saw her? Did she have any known enemies? Was she under any stress? But the moment detectives started digging, the case took a turn that no one expected. Camille Holloway wasn't just missing. She had been looking over her shoulder for weeks. Her search history revealed something unsettling: how to hire a private investigator. The date? Just 5 days before she vanished. A single line, buried between mundane searches. Restaurants, flight prices, weather updates. But it stood out. Because Camille wasn't the kind of person who hired investigators. She was the person people came to when they needed the truth. So why, suddenly, was she the one searching for answers? Detectives dug deeper, and that's when they found it. A text message, sent to her best friend Lauren Redding just 2 nights before she disappeared. A message that stopped detectives cold. If anything happens to me, look at Desmond. He was short, direct, and terrifying, because Camille wasn't dramatic, she wasn't reckless with her words, and she certainly wasn't the type to send cryptic messages for no reason. If she had typed those 10 words, it meant something. And it meant something big. Desmond Holloway was contacted immediately. When reached for comment, his response was measured, polite. "I'm just as shocked as everyone else," he told reporters. "I just want Camille to come home safe." But behind closed doors, investigators weren't convinced. His marriage was crumbling, his wife had just vanished, and now she had left behind a warning. Still, police needed more than suspicion. They needed hard evidence. And that's when they got their first real break. A security camera, a single grainy clip, captured at 11:23 p.m. just 6 minutes after Camille left the gala. It wasn't much, but it was enough to change everything. A black SUV, tinted windows, moving too slowly to be casual, too close to be coincidence. Following Camille's car onto Highway 29, for a moment investigators felt a surge of hope, a lead, a direction. But the deeper they looked, the more frustrating the case became. The SUV's license plates? Stolen. Registered to a vehicle reported missing weeks earlier. No owner, no paper trail, no clues to track. Another dead end. And yet, there it was, shadowing Camille's car, as if waiting for the right moment to make a move. The question was, did it? Detectives began piecing together her final movements: the gala, the messages, the abandoned car. But one thing kept bothering them. Why Highway 29? It wasn't the direct route home. It wasn't familiar to Camille. It was isolated, dimly lit, the kind of road you didn't take unless you had to. And yet, that's where she ended up. Dahub. Or what led her there? Investigators combed through traffic footage, looking for anything that might explain Camille's movements. That's when they discovered something that stopped them cold. A second car, unmarked, untraceable, appearing on camera for just 5 seconds before disappearing into the darkness. 5 seconds, that's all they had, but it was enough. Because of that second car? It was already there, parked on the shoulder of Highway 29, waiting. At this point, the police knew they weren't just dealing with a missing person. Camille Holloway hadn't simply walked away. Someone, or something, had been waiting for her. The question was, why? What did Camille know? And what had she uncovered in the final days before she disappeared? Detectives returned to her search history, combing through every detail, and that's when they found it. The name. A name that no one expected to see. Miles Grayson. For most people, the name meant nothing, but for investigators it was a bombshell, because Miles Grayson wasn't just anyone. He was Desmond Holloway's former business partner, a man who had once been at the top, until everything fell apart. A man who had lost everything, vanished from the public eye, and had been living off the grid for years. And yet, just 1 week before Camille disappeared, she had searched his name, not once, not twice, but 6 times. The last search? The night before she vanished. So, what was Camille looking for? What had she found? And why, after all these years, had she suddenly turned her attention to Miles Grayson? The case was no longer about a missing woman. It was about a buried truth, one that someone was willing to erase. And the deeper investigators went, the more dangerous the truth became. Coming up next, the secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. The lies that shattered the perfect facade, and the discovery that changed everything. Just when investigators thought they were getting closer to the truth, the case took a turn no one expected. Every clue, every lead, every assumption, suddenly, nothing made sense anymore. Because Camille Holloway wasn't just a missing woman. She was a woman who knew something, and someone had made sure she wouldn't speak again. It started with the bank records. Detectives traced Camille's financial history, expecting the usual: monthly bills, charity donations, and standard transactions. Instead, they found something that made their blood run cold. A transfer, $250,000, sent to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The recipient? Unknown. The timing? 3 days before she disappeared. For investigators, this raised 2 terrifying possibilities. Was Camille running, or was she paying someone off? And if she was, what was she trying to buy? Protection? Silence? Or something far more dangerous? Her family refused to believe she had planned an escape. Camille wasn't reckless. She wasn't impulsive. If she had been preparing to disappear, someone would have known. Someone would have seen the signs. But there were none. No packed bags, no change in behavior, no sudden withdrawals or cash hoarding, just one massive transaction, an amount too large to be ignored, too deliberate to be a coincidence. The detectives needed answers, and they needed them fast. They might turn to the one person who should have known more than anyone: Desmond Holloway. Desmond had played the part of the concerned husband perfectly. He held press conferences, pleaded for information, and offered a reward for any tip that led to Camille's return. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Because of his alibi, it didn't hold up. Desmond had told police he was home the night Camille vanished, alone in their mansion, watching late-night television. But phone records told a different story. At exactly 11:42 p.m., a call was placed from Desmond's cell phone, and it wasn't from his home. It pinged off a tower just 2 miles from the stretch of highway where Camille's abandoned car was found. Detectives confronted him with the evidence. His response? Calm, collected. "I must have gone for a drive," he said. Needed some air. Didn't realize I was near that area. But investigators weren't buying it, not for a second. And then, just when it seemed like they might have their prime suspect, something happened that changed everything. A letter. Hand-delivered. No return address, no fingerprints, no witnesses. It arrived at the Holloway estate on a crisp white envelope, addressed to Desmond himself. Inside, just 9 words. 9 words that sent a shockwave through the entire investigation. She found out, you know what happened next. For the first time, Desmond looked shaken. He denied knowing what it meant, denied recognizing the handwriting, denied everything. But detectives knew better. Someone had sent this letter for a reason. Someone wanted Desmond to know that they knew. But who? A friend? A former business partner? Or the person responsible for Camille's disappearance? Investigators combed through Desmond's past, searching for anything, anyone, who might have had a reason to send that letter. And that's when another name surfaced. A name that hadn't been mentioned in years. Miles Grayson. It had been nearly a decade since Desmond and Miles had worked together, partners in the real estate empire that made Desmond rich. But their relationship had ended in disaster. Lawsuits, scandals, a financial deal gone wrong. Miles had lost everything. And now, suddenly, Camille had been looking into him, contacting people who knew him, digging into records that should have been buried. The same week she disappeared. Detectives tracked Miles down to a small cabin outside Baton Rouge. Isolated, quiet. A man who wanted to be forgotten. But when they knocked on his door, he wasn't surprised. He was waiting for them. "Took you long enough," he muttered. And then, without hesitation, he pulled out a single sheet of paper and placed it on the table. A bank statement. A transaction dated 4 days before Camille went missing. $250,000. Wired from Camille Holloway's account. Directly. To him. The same money detectives had been trying to trace. The same transfer that no one could explain. And now, sitting across from them, the recipient himself. Alive. Waiting. Holding the answers they desperately needed. But what he said next? It shattered everything they thought they knew about Camille Holloway's disappearance, because according to Miles Grayson, Camille wasn't running. She was investigating a secret worth dying for. The case of Camille Holloway gripped the nation. The twists, the secrets, the unanswered questions. And yet, after months of exhaustive searches, forensic analyses, and interrogations, there was still no trace of Camille. Nobody, no confirmed sightings, nothing. It was as if she had been swallowed by the earth itself. Search teams scoured the bayous, the abandoned properties, and the miles of desolate highway where her car was found. Cadaver dogs, sonar scans, aerial sweeps, every possible method was used. But the result was always the same. Nothing. And then, 1 year later, an unexpected breakthrough, or what seemed like one. A hiker, trekking through the dense marshlands outside Baton Rouge, stumbled upon something partially buried in the mud, a fragment of black leather, worn from exposure. Faintly embossed on the surface, 2 gold letters. Camille Holloway. There it was confirmed. This was a piece of her purse, the very one found sitting undisturbed in her abandoned car. But how had it ended up here, nearly 40 miles away? And why was this the only trace of her that had ever surfaced? It led to even more unsettling questions. Had Camille been alive long after she vanished? Had she been held somewhere, trapped, waiting before she met an unknown fate? Or had someone planted this as a cruel distraction, a breadcrumb leading nowhere? Despite this discovery, no human remains were found. No footprints, no clothing, no new forensic evidence. And just like that, the trail went cold again. But Camille wasn't the only one who vanished. Desmond Holloway, the man at the center of every suspicion, didn't disappear physically, but professionally, he might as well have. Within months of Camille's disappearance, the walls of his empire began to crumble. First, an internal audit revealed discrepancies in his company's financial records. Offshore accounts, unreported transactions, money that seemed to vanish into thin air. Then came the fraud investigations, the allegations of embezzlement, the quiet departures of longtime business partners who no longer wanted their names tied to his. And the final blow? The lawsuit, filed by Camille's sister Leona Hayes, demanding an independent investigation into Desmond's finances and his potential involvement in Camille's fate. But through it all, Desmond remained steadfast, unwavering. He sat for interviews, stood before cameras, looked into the eyes of an entire nation, and repeated the same thing over and over again. I had nothing to do with Camille's disappearance. She left. She planned this. She wanted to start over. Even as his fortune crumbled, even as he became a pariah in the city he once ruled, even as the accusations piled up, the whispers turned to roars, and the world watched him unravel. He never changed his story. According to Desmond, Camille orchestrated her vanishing act. The case remains open, but the deeper you look, the more you realize it may never be solved. There is no confession, no definitive proof of foul play, only fragmented clues, unanswered calls, and the agonizing absence of closure. And so, the debate rages on. Was Camille Holloway a victim, trapped in a marriage that has taken a deadly turn, silenced before she could expose something catastrophic? Or did she do the impossible? Did she outsmart everyone, her husband, the authorities, the entire world, and vanish into the shadows, leaving nothing behind but questions that may never be answered? One thing is certain, whatever happened that night, Camille knew something. And someone, somewhere, knows the truth. Power and money can open doors. They can shape narratives. They can rewrite history, on the surface, but they can't erase the truth. Somewhere out there, the real story of Camille Holloway remains untold, a truth buried beneath speculation, theories, and fragments of evidence that refuse to form a complete picture. A truth someone, somewhere, is still holding on to. Was Camille a woman who had no way out? Trapped, silenced, erased? Or was she the mastermind of her own vanishing act, slipping away into the unknown, leaving only mystery in her wake? And then there's Desmond Holloway, a man who, despite every whisper, every headline, every pointed finger, was never charged. A man who insists to this day that Camille walked away, leaving him to suffer under the weight of a crime he swears never happened. But do you believe him? Now it's your turn. Drop your theories in the comments. What really happened to Camille Holloway? Was Desmond involved? Or was Camille hiding something even bigger? Something dangerous enough to make her disappear? If this case kept you on the edge of your seat, make sure to hit like, subscribe for more cases that will leave you questioning everything, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because the world is full of mysteries. Soon have answers. Others may never be solved. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, every mystery has a truth waiting to be uncovered.